You. Okay, guys. You know what time it is. We're breaking down UFC Fight Night, Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdine Imanov. And we've got a stacked main card, and we've got some fun fights on the prelims, too. About two fights that I'm really interested in. And you know what I'm here to do? I'm here to break them all down, give you guys my opinion on them, and hopefully be right. That's the goal, right? So let's go ahead and jump into it. We're gonna be breaking down first fight, Hamdi Adulawab and Blob versus Jamal Poes. And right off the bat, you might think, man, both these guys look gay. And you wouldn't be wrong in thinking that. Look at Jamal's hair and just look at this guy's face and his smile. It screams gay. But both these guys also fight like it. I'm kidding. Hamdi's actually, he goes after shit. He gets the job done in all of his fights so far. He definitely popped for PEDs and steroids and all that shit, and that's why he's been away from the game. And Jamal Pogues has been active and at it recently. But what stands off the page to me is that this is, I'm pretty sure, a debut for Hamdi. It might not be a debut, but he just doesn't have a lot of experience at 5-0-0. You can't have a ton of experience, and Jamal Pogues has more experience and has gone and he's more of a tried and true veteran and proven himself. So I think Hamdi's going to go out there and blow his load a little bit. Jamal knows that he wants to knock him out. Hamdi is the more athletic, explosive guy. I just think, Jamal might struggle a little bit in round one and will start to find his rhythm in 2 and 3. And I just don't think Hamdi's been here before, and I don't think that he's 2 years out of fighting. I don't know if he's really going to be that guy. So this is a toss up. I wouldn't bet on it. I'm going to go with Jamal Pogues. I feel pretty good about it. But next up, we've got a fun matchup. This is one of my fights on the prelims that I'm actually really excited for because of Lucas Alexander. I know what you're thinking. 8-4, got slept in his last fight. Roll the clip. He got fucking slept and dropped bad news. But that's a fluke knockout, man. I don't know. I don't care what you say. If Lucas is chinny or whatever the deal is, man, that was a fluke knockout, okay? Let's give this guy credit. Go actually watch his fights. He's legit, man. He fights like if Nassourdine Imanov and Israel Adesanya had a baby. I like it. He's a good fighter, man. He's got good counters. And Bogden Grad fights like a retarded version of Yuri Prohaska. Now, if you can imagine what that looks like, you can imagine Bogden Grad, okay? He throws a lot of stupid spinning shit that doesn't make sense to throw, and he doesn't fully commit on a lot of stuff. And if you just look at his face, he looks like he has room temperature IQ. So I am going to go with Lucas Alexander. I think he's going to have a big showing. I think it is going to be a finish. I can see a round one finish, similar to the Tom Nolan finish of Bogdan Grad. I could see that being a similar thing here. Lucas Alexander is going to go in there and get the job done. Okay? Serious. Next up, we've got Jasmine Jusdavicius versus Mauro Bueno Silva. I'm not going to break this down. I'm not going to break it down. Jasmine Jusdavicius. Okay. Next up, we've got Terence McKenna versus Damir Hadzovic. 38-year-old, okay? Damir Hadzovic is 38. Okay, he's been around for a while. He's taken damage. But roll the clip again, man. Terence McKenna is Terence McKenna. He's got highlight reels and not his own highlight reels. That is the problem. He is on everybody else's highlight reel, and that's why just can you really trust this guy? He just got clipped by Esteban Ribovic in his last fight, and it's scary to bet on him, man. And I won't be having him in my parlays personally, but I am gonna pick him to win the fight. I am just gonna go with the youth here. That's not a good predictions. It's not good to do while predicting fights, is just to go with the youth, but I think hopefully Terence McKenna will just somehow get the job done. He's got a lot of power and he's very explosive and whatnot, and I just hope that maybe he can connect to his chin. I don't feel great about it, but I am going to go with Terence McKenna. I think it's not a lock or nothing, but I am just going to pick him. He should get the job done against Damir. You could just eye test it. He should get the job done. Okay. Never mind. My bad. I just was confused there because Fares Yam was not on the prelims anymore. Anyways, Shamil the Blob Gazia versus Thomas Peterson. I am going to pick the Blob here. I think he's, that reach advantage is going to be the telltale of this matchup. I think, he'll be able to hopefully check the leg kicks and hopefully have the grappling advantage. Those are the two hopes of the matchup because Thomas Peterson isn't bad. He's definitely no CSGO player, if you know who I'm talking about, Budai. He's better than that. He beat Muhammad Usman. That's pretty impressive. So it's not like this is just like a lopsided, Shamil's just going to run through him. I just think the Blob is going to go in there, out jab him, use that reach advantage, use the wrestling in rounds 2 and 3, and ultimately just work his way to a decision win. That's what the Blob does, and that's why he's going to beat Tom Aspinall. So we're going to go with Shamil here. I feel good about it. Okay. I was going to say we have a feature, highlight fight of the night for the prelims, but we're jumping right into the main card. It looks as if Faresiam has gotten promoted up to the main card, which I'm extremely happy with. Anyways, Muhammad Naimov versus Khan Ofli, however you want to pronounce it. Doesn't matter to me. I just think Muhammad's going to kind of shove him into a locker. I think they're pretty evenly matched, on the feet, and the wrestling, and everything. I just think the frame advantage, if you take two people who are exactly, like skilled, and you just give one guy, a 2-inch height advantage and a frame advantage, I think he just shoves him into a locker. So I think that's kind of what the story of this matchup's going to be. They're going to be pretty even on the feet, and I think a 29-20 egg, I definitely see Khan winning a round at least. And other than that, Muhammad just holds him up against the fence. I mean, what more could I really break down in this fight? I'd love to give you guys more, but I don't really think there's anything else. I mean, Muhammad's tough, and I think he'll shove him into a fence. Now, if you wanted to take a couple underdogs on this card, I don't think Khan's a bad underdog. I really don't. I think this could be, if there were a couple upsets on the card and it was one of those types of cards, I think Khan could definitely be one of them. But if it's a reality that we live in, I think Muhammad should win it. So next up, this is my fight of the night right here because I'm curious about Faresiam, and I think everybody else should be. Faresiam has had some good highlights here recently. I'll go ahead and roll the tape. He's had some impressive finishes, and initially what popped off the screen is this guy's got little legs, little arms, and little hips. He's a toothpick, right? And you see Mike Davis, and he's got these huge abdominals, this chest, these shoulders, the huge back, the legs, everything. He's a physically gifted guy, and with the wrestling experience that he has, you would think this guy is gonna run through Faresiam. He's got the chain wrestling too, which that separates the good wrestlers from the bad ones, is the chain wrestling. And Mike Davis isn't scared to shoot 3 shots in a row, and that's what really, if you're gonna bank on a wrestler to make you some money, you want that chain wrestling there, right? And that's what I love to think about this matchup. But you dive a little bit deeper, you do some research, you say, well, what happened to Mike Davis last year? He was supposed to fight, right? And you start looking into the X's and the O's of Mike Davis's life, and you realize, man, this guy just tore his bicep in half off the bone. He got it all stapled back together, back onto his bone. And you actually, if you look closely enough, you could see some atrophy in that arm, that left arm. I just don't know if Mike Davis is mentally the same guy and physically the same guy that he was when he was fighting pre-injuries. And, I think with Mike Davis experiencing the injuries he's had, and this definitely wasn't his first one, I think he's kind of unmotivated and a little bit, pissed off that, he's got all this talent. He's got everything to be a top 10, top 5 contender, yet he can't even use it. And that's what he even said in his Twitter post. I think this guy definitely has potential, uninjured and fully, full-bodied. He could be a legit guy in this division. So, that's my problem with Mike Davis. I just think Faresiam he looks like he's thinking every time that he goes into a wrestling situation, like he's listening to his coaches, looking over to the corner, looking for advice. He does that every single time. And, that would be my problem, like I said, with Faresiam, if Mike Davis wasn't injured. And, I'd say put the house on Mike Davis. But I think that's going to even out the discrepancy between their wrestling is Mike Davis's injury. He's coming back relatively fast for a bicep tear of his degree. Now, granted, these guys have the best doctors that they could find for the UFC, and they have hookups, so you never know. But I will say, being a guy that has experienced injuries, significant ones, such as Mike Davis's, I don't know. I wouldn't bank on it, man. I'm taking Fressiam here to drag it into deep waters. I think he dominates round one, and then round two, Mike Davis finds a lot of success because he's hesitant in round one to use his arm. He warms up, adrenaline starts pumping, he dominates round two, and then round three he gets slept. So I'm going to go with that. Okay, next up here we got Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira. Fun matchup. Just to break it down simply, I think Said's a little bit better everywhere. That's really what it is. I don't think, and my biggest problem would be the Jonathan Martinez versus Said Nurmagomedov matchup, where we saw the leg kicks be a very significant part of that fight, and Vinicius is a big leg kicker, and that would be my biggest concern of this. But I like that Said has dealt with a guy like Jonathan Martinez before getting a matchup like Vinicius Oliveira, and that's what makes me feel comfortable about this fight. I think I can confidently pick Said because he's dealt with the Jonathan Martinez. Granted, he lost that fight, but in every loss, you get a lot better than you do in a win. So I'm going to go and pick Said because my biggest concern would only be the leg kicks. And I like that he's already fought a guy who is predominantly leg kick based. So that makes me feel good about it. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Said. I'm not going to break it down too much further and confuse myself here. Said should be better everywhere. Okay, next up we've got Sergey Pavlovich versus Jarino Rosenstrike. I don't have X's and O's for this. I don't. I think Sergey is coming off 2 losses. Jarzinho's on a winning streak. He's got the hype. And that's exactly why I'm going to pick Sergey Pavlovich to get a knockout in round 1. I think he's due for it. I think, after coming off 2 losses and he was pissed off after that last loss, he's only losing to the best guys in the division. I think the last 2 he's lost to are the 1 and 2. And I think the only 3 people that beat him apart from his last 2 losses would be Ciryl Gane. So there's only 3 people in the division I think that beats him. I think he's number 4. But we could see obviously Jailton Almeida come up. I think Sergey is a comfortable number 5 in the division. I think that's where I'd put him. And yeah, I think he beats Jarzinho. I think Jarzinho is like a 7. I think he's ranked 7, 6 or 7. I just think Sergey's a little bit better. And I think he'll find that knockout with that reach advantage. He's got a significant reach advantage. He's got those rock'em sock'em robot arms. And I think that's good enough to beat Jarzinho with the punching power that he has. Seeing Jarzinho get slept before. Sergey coming off a loss. You got to be careful with these heavyweight fights. You can't go too deep into it unless it's Tom Aspinall. And yeah, I think Sergey's just going to go in there and do what he does. Next up, we've got Shara the Pirate Putin Margomedov versus Michael Venom Page. Right off the bat, I want to pick MVP. I really do. I think MVP is better. I think he's very good on that linear fighting line. I think he's the best linear fighter in the game. You look at linear fighters I'll give you an example like Robert Whittaker, that blitz style on that straight line. That's what MVP is, except he's the best to ever do it, I think, because of his attributes, his reach, his everything, his speed, his timing, his everything. It's perfect. His hand-eye coordination. He's the best at it, and that's why we've never seen him get outstruck on a line. If the 2 fighters aren't allowed to take side steps and they're just fighting on a line, I'll take MVP over anybody in the entire world. I think he's the best linear fighter ever. And that's why I'm man, I don't really want to take Shara, because if you look at a predominantly a kickboxer, a heavy kickboxer guy who's just throwing a ton of kicks, you say, okay, how do you counter a kickboxer? You take a guy who's really good fighting on a line, a guy who's really good at closing the distance and throwing straight shots, and that is MVP. That is the definition of MVP. So right off the bat, this screams, this is a horrible matchup for Shara. And I agree. It's just my problem with this matchup is that Shara has a good enough chin, I think, to take shots. And, I think he actually could have some grappling success if he wanted to. Just holding up against the fence and taking him down. And then on top of that, I think, this is, guys, look at where this is at. This is in Saudi Arabia. You know who Saudi Arabia's favorite fighters are? One of them in the top three at least is Shariput Magomedov. And if you go look back to that last fight with Carl Leal and Renat Fakhretdinov, that was a complete robbery. Carlos Leal won that fight all day, and they just gave it to Renat Fakhretdinov. So that's my concern with this matchup. I think Shariput Magomedov is going to get a stolen decision, man. I think that's what's going to happen. You guys mark my word right here, man. I think Shara's going to get a stolen decision, stolen split decision. I think they're going to have to do a split decision, which they didn't even do a split decision for Renat. They're going to have to do a split decision with how good MVP is going to do in this matchup. So I think a plus 3.5 on MVP looks pretty good to me. I don't really see Shara getting a finish on MVP. Like I said, if there's going to be a finish here, I'm really looking at MVP. I think he's way more goofy, technical, fast, everything. Like all the things that would matter in getting a knockout, I think MVP does have those advantages. So I'm just going to have to pick Shara here just because it's in Saudi Arabia. If this was anywhere else, I'm picking MVP and putting my household on it, especially at these odds with MVP being plus money. But don't fucking put your money on MVP. You're going to be pissed at the UFC and stop watching. So just don't do it. I've been there, done that, man. Don't do it. Okay. Last fight of the card here. We've got Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdine Imanov. And this is actually a lot harder to break down than you might initially think, right? Because you've got Israel Adesanya and Nassourdine Imanov who have very similar styles, except I'd say Nassourdine is a little bit more of a heavier counterpuncher, whereas Israel is more of the tit for tat, float around and just kind of touch you and point fighter counter style. Like if you throw a big shot, he'll touch you with a jab and a leg kick. Whereas or like a big body shot, he'll wind up for a big body shot like you see in the Jerkis fight. But Nassourdine definitely has the power advantage here. Don't get it fooled. That's his path to victory. I could definitely see a world where, Izzy goes and tit for tats and just leg kicks, circles away, not on a straight line, because if he circles away on a straight line, I could see him getting caught, but he does a really good job of circling away, circling away. He makes a circle, right? He goes left or right. He doesn't just back up in a straight line. And if you watch Jared Cannonier, every time he left an exchange with Nassourdine, he did that as well, and he had a lot of success. He didn't get caught. And when he didn't do that, he got caught. And I don't think Izzy's too much of the type of guy to sit down in the pocket and trade, but he definitely does that, and he's definitely capable of like sitting down in the pocket and trading. I think that might be his downfall here. I think Nassourdine, similar to the Jared Cannonier fight, will be waiting and waiting and waiting and finally find that mark where he might catch Izzy with a really big shot. And Izzy being 35 and a half, I'm not sure he's taken one of this is the hardest, and I will tell you, Alex Pereira, you could probably say that was the hardest hitter, but if we're going to rank his second hardest hitter that Israel's ever fought, it's Nassourdine Imanov. This guy fucking chucks, and he hits hard as fuck. So just be careful. If you're big on Nassourdine Imanov here, I would take him by finish, because he definitely does have the grappling advantage too, but Izzy is hard to submit, and he's hard to but I could see him rocking Izzy and getting a submission or something like that, right? Or getting a ground and pound TKO. I just feel more comfortable going with a guy who has finishing potential. Like, I'd rather not sweat out. I'd rather watch my guy get beat up and be like, yeah, he's just not as good. It was just a bad read. Than have my guy that I'm betting on, win the whole fight and get knocked out in the last second. That pisses me off way more. So if I have to put money on, I'm putting it on Nassourdine for a finish. I think a Israel by decision, Nassourdine by KO isn't, that's not a bad bet at all. But anyways, I'm gonna go with the finishing potential. I'm gonna go with the hype train of Nassourdine. But like I said, Israel should win by decision. He should win. He should absolutely win by decision. He is the better fighter, and I think this is a tough style for Nassourdine to deal with, because it's hard to land counter punches on a guy like Izzy and land a big shot on a guy like Izzy. I'm just hoping Nassourdine can finish it out, and with the punching power, he gets it done. But if you want my last pick, I'm picking Izzy. Izzy by decision. Fuck. That's terrible. But anyways, guys, that's going to be Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdine Imanov. fight night. Those are my predictions, my breakdown. I'll see you guys later this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. And drop a like for the boy.